Hi guys, thanks for joining me for another recipe here on Mary's Vegan Table. Today we'll actually be making two different kinds of cheese. The first one is going to be mozzarella cheese, and I'm making that with oat milk. It's going to be a little different from how you guys usually know how it's going to be a little different from the way you guys usually see it being made, because in this case I'm not using the cashew nuts or almond nuts, or I'm just going straight for the oat milk. So what we're going to do is first we're going to add 2 cups of oat milk. In my case, I'm going to use more than 2 cups of oat milk because I'm making a lot more cheese. So this recipe is pretty simple. To make extra, you just double the recipe. All you do is double the ingredients, or triple them, or whatever you get, you know. So right now I'm up to 4 cups. It's 4 cups. Here's 8 cups. So I'm using 8 cups of oat milk. 8 cups of oat milk. To this, I'm going to add salt. You guys add as much or as little salt as you like. Me, I like my cheese a little salty, but not too salty. So I'm adding that's probably about a tablespoon of salt I'm putting in there. If I need more while it's on the stove, I will add more. If I was just using the 2 cups of oat milk, then I would just be using like 8 tablespoons of tapioca. Okay, so the 2 cups of milk, well, the 2 cups of oat milk, you would add 6 tablespoons of tapioca starch. But since I put the 8 cups of oat milk in here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a cup of the tapioca starch. If it starts getting too thick while it's on the stove, I'll just add a little more milk to it until it comes to that texture that I need it. So we have the salt in here. We have the tapioca starch in here. Now I'm going to add some lactic acid, vegan lactic acid. I believe this one is made from beets. You gotta be careful with this. You don't want to too much because it'll be like way too sour, the cheese. If you don't have this, you could add some fresh lime juice, or you could add a little of apple cider vinegar. That works fine too. So I'm guessing with this right now, I am going to add, it's about a teaspoon. And remember, I have 8 cups of plant-based milk in here. So if you're just going to use the 2 cups to start, use less than a teaspoon. Okay, we have the 8 cups of oat milk. We have the cup of tapioca starch. We have the teaspoon of vegan lactic acid. We have about a tablespoon, maybe half a tablespoon of salt in there. Actually, that was not even a tablespoon. What I put in there is more like a teaspoon. So we have the teaspoon of salt. And using the recipe that calls for just the 2 cups of plant-based milk, 4 tablespoons of coconut oil is required for that. But since I have all this, way more than 2, I'm just going to add like the 8 cups. I'm going to add like probably 8 tablespoons of coconut oil. A lot of recipes, you'll see that they melt it first. I don't melt it. It's going to get all blended up and it's going to end up melting on the stove. So here I got my coconut oil in here. I really don't measure when I do this, but since I'm doing this for you guys, I'm trying to give you guys the best accurate measurements that I possibly can. Okay. So now we have to add a Capper Carrigan. I prefer this over the agar, because I find it to give it a better firm texture than the agar. But you can use the agar if you prefer. For the 2 cup of plant-based milk recipe, it calls for 2.5 tablespoons of agar. This stuff is more potent than that, but if you were to use this, I would start off with a tablespoon, not 2 tablespoons. But since there's 8 cups of milk in here, I think I'm going to go ahead and just add the 2.5 tablespoons. Like I said, normally I do not measure, but in this case, I'm going to try see. Okay, so here I'm adding, that's 2. You know what? I'm going to add 3 tablespoons. Let's add the 3 tablespoons. Notice this is all I'm adding to it. I'm not adding any garlic powder or onion powder, or I'm not even putting any nutritional yeast in it. Because to be quite honest with you, with just the salt and the milk itself, well, the plant-based milk, and the lactic acid, when this all comes together, you will get that taste of mozzarella cheese. So I'm going to get this blended up, and then we'll bring it over to the stove. Okay, so now that it's all blended up, I'm going to take it over to the stove and start getting it thickened up. Okay, so I start this on a medium-high. Scrape that up, because you don't believe how much is actually left on the sides. So don't let this burn. You can already see it's kind of thick. It's already got like a thickness, a richness to it. And that's why I like using the oat milk, because the oat milk already has like that thickness to it. At times I do make mozzarella cheese with the fresh cashews, but I like this method too, this way of doing it. So we just keep stirring it until it gets to that thickness, and once it gets to that thickness that we want it to be, we have to pour it right away into our cups or whatever we're gonna use as a mold. Also, you could make the buffalo mozzarella. All you gotta do is have a big bowl of ice cold water and just scoop this in with like a small ice cream scooper or a spoon, and just scoop it in and drop it in as like little balls. And then you can even make a brine for it. You could fill up a jar with some salt and put your buffalo mozzarella in that. This cheese, it also freezes very well. I still have a piece of this in my freezer from last month, and I use it on and off because I just grate it while it's frozen, and it's still good. This stuff just the taste gets better over time. The taste gets much better. The taste of mozzarella gets more pronounced in it. So I gotta tell you guys too, if by chance you should make this and it's not enough tapioca starch and you need it to be thicker, I suggest that you pour everything back into the blender and add the tapioca and blend it up again. Because if you just add the tapioca starch straight to the pot, you're going to be left with a bunch of lumps and it's going to take forever to try to get rid of them. So it's much easier and more time consuming, less time consuming, just to pour it back into the blender and do it that way. I wouldn't suggest pouring tapioca straight into the pot. Okay. Okay, this does take a while to thicken up, and I did step away from it to go wash some of the things out of the sink. So as you can see, it's getting thicker. You just have to be careful not to let it burn. Make sure when you're stirring, you get the bottom and in the corners of the pot good. As you can see, that's getting pretty thick, right? Debating if whether or not I'm waiting to see if whether or not I added a little too much of the tapioca. Oh, and also what I want to try is, let me test. Let me see what it tastes like, if it has enough of the vegan lactic acid and enough salt. And you know what? It needs more. That's why it's always best to taste. So I'm going to add some more salt. Let me lower this. Now I'm going to put it on low because now I got to take a minute just to add some extra ingredients. So we added the salt. Let's get the lactic acid. Okay. So add a little bit more. And I pretty much know, like, this should be okay. We'll see. Just remember to taste. After you put it in the refrigerator and you taste it, if you're not happy with it, the good part about it is that it's cheese. You could just put it right back in the pot and melt it down again and add whatever ingredients you feel it needs. Can you see this, guys? It's getting nice and thick, smooth. We don't want it lumpy. We want it to look smooth. Let's taste this again. Notice how it solidifies. I'm blowing on it and you see it's getting, so it does, this gets hard right away. That's why when we're ready, when it's melted like this, we need to, go as quickly as we can to get it into our molds and into the fridge. It's pretty good. It's good. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little more salt and a little more lactic acid to get it to that flavor where I want it. Add a little at a time because we don't want it to be ridiculously sour, because if it gets ridiculously sour, it's not easy getting that sour flavor out of it. And you can see when you go like this, you can actually see the bottom of the pot. When you go like that, that's basically an indication that it is ready to be poured into the mold and then refrigerate it. And that's the taste I'm looking for. Okay. So we're going to hurry and pour these things into the mold and get them in the fridge. Okay, so here I have my cups that I'm going to pour these into. Okay. And I pour them into regular plastic bowls like this, or even the ones that I reuse after I'm done with the product that's already in them. These are the kind of things that I use just to recycle. I don't have, I store things in these things too, so it's better for the environment. So you just give it a little tap, get some of the bubbles off the top if you want. And this will go into the refrigerator, and it'll take about an hour maybe. Should take about an hour for it to actually solidify. But the best way to do it is just let it sit overnight in the fridge and use it the following day. So once I'm done filling these up, we're gonna get done. We're gonna get started on our ricotta. So you can see those 8 cups got me 2 of those small soup size bowls that you get from like the takeouts with your soup in it. And let's see, it may actually have gotten me 3. So that's a pretty good deal. And that's it. And like I said, I'm gonna put these in when they're ready to cut, when they're solid. I'll show you guys how it turns out. Next, we're gonna start on ricotta. Okay, guys. So here, I've been having the tofu pressing under this cast iron skillet. Now this tofu is for ricotta. I let it press for as long as I want. I just put it and do what I gotta do around the house or outside, whatever, And I come back and then I just make my ricotta. But you could press it for about 5-10 minutes. Just make sure you get most of that, all that water out, because we don't want it to really have that tofu water taste to it. And quite honestly, guys, I did this recipe for you guys not too long ago, but YouTube gave me a big issue. Well, not a big issue. The same issue they give everybody else with copyright, with music and stuff like that. And the time that it was taking me, the days that it was taking me just to get rid of that one song was not even worth the hassle or the aggravation. So I decided to just delete the whole video. It'd be quicker just to do it all over again. So within this video of making my mozzarella and making the ricotta, I am going to show you how to stuff the jalapeno peppers with the ricotta cheese and to make jalapeno poppers with it. It's really good. And I'll also stuff it with the mozzarella that I made today too. So without any further ado, let's get this ricotta going. Okay. So I'm just going to unwrap the tofu from the paper towels. And I'm going to go break them and put them, little pieces of it, into the blender. And this is extra firm tofu. I like extra firm tofu. I use it for practically everything. Unless I'm going to make some kind of a sauce maybe once in a great blue moon. I'll use a silken tofu for a sauce. So, and because I'm going to be using this to make eggplant parm, I'm going to make some extra ricotta so that way I can show you guys how I stuff the jalapeno poppers with this. Okay. Let's get it all in there. Okay. I usually put a little at a time and blend. Today I'm just putting everything in all at once. Okay. Just to get this started, pulse it. Okay. Here I'm going to add plant-based milk to it. Start off with a quarter cup. Quite honestly, that was okay. So this is three. This is 3 blocks of tofu and about a half a cup of plant-based milk. I'm gonna add a little teaspoon of salt, not much, because later on I can add more to it after I get it out the blender and I start, I start mixing everything. Here, unlike the mozzarella, I am going to add nutritional yeast. That's about a tablespoon and a that's about a tablespoon and a half. So just gonna empty that all in there. And with the ricotta, it's good because you could really just blend just the tofu, the milk, and some oil up. And then once it's all blended up, put it into, a bowl or something, and then start adding your dry ingredients so you could taste it, and you could start seasoning everything, to taste. I'm gonna add some black pepper. Oh, and the salt I added is sea salt. I don't use regular salt because regular salt is processed through bone char. I'm gonna put some Italian seasoning in it. I usually just put dry parsley, but why not put that in there? That way, all the flavors are layered evenly from the cheese and the sauce that I'm gonna make for the eggplant, and the coating I'm gonna use for the eggplant. Everything will just have layers of delicious flavor from the seasonings. Here I'm gonna add a little bit of onion. Like I said, for you guys, the best way to do it is to just blend up the wet ingredients with your tofu. Put everything in a bowl and then start adding your ingredients, your seasonings. So that way, it's to how you like the way it tastes. I'm going to add a little garlic. And you could use 1 block of tofu. You could use 2. You could use as many blocks of tofu as you like. And because it needs that little bit of fat in there, I'm adding some olive oil. This is about, I think I added a half a cup of olive oil, maybe a quarter cup of olive oil. And now I'm just going to blend it all up again, okay? Pulse it so that way it all gets mixed in. Pulses. Yeah, that's nice and smooth. Just the ricotta. And that definitely needs more salt. Right off the bat, I'm telling you, it needs more salt. So, that's your ricotta. Oh my god, it's so good. Even though it needs the salt, it still tastes good because it still has that ricotta consistency that you're used to. So, after this, all you have to do is just put it in a bowl, cover it, put it in the fridge, and when you're ready to use it, use it. This will last in your refrigerator for about 5 days. Okay, so here we have the ricotta. See, it's nice and thick. And believe it or not, this really goes good stuffed inside the jalapeno poppers. Okay. And here we have the mozzarella cheese that I made with the oat milk. Do this again. It has that nice mozzarella, that's that kind of like sweetness almost that the mozzarella cheese has. We're also going to use this for our poppers as well. I'll put this here. I'm going to be making gluten-free jalapeno poppers. I'm going to have a wet batter and a dry. I'll start with the wet. I have 3 jalapeno poppers. Three jalapenos. But once I cut them in half, we're going to have 6 poppers. So I really don't need to make a lot of batter. So basically, when you're making yours, just, eyeball how much flour you're using to make your batters. So here, I'm just going to use a half a cup of flour for the wet batter. I'm using a half a cup of flour as well for the dry mixture. So basically, you're going to season up both the wet and the dry batter, the same seasoning. So we want the flavors layered. I have some paprika, about a teaspoon of paprika, onion powder, I would say a teaspoon of everything. Then that is just a half a cup of flour. The more flour you use, the more seasonings you're gonna have to use. So that was some garlic, about a teaspoon of salt. Go in some parsley. That's about a tablespoon, I guess, of parsley. And a little bit of pepper, black pepper. Let's just mix this up. Now, I would make this with beer because it does taste really good, beer batter. But I don't have any vegan beer on hand, so I'm just going to use water. Now, careful when you start adding the water in. I'm not going to give you an exact measurement of water because, like I said, I only added a half a cup. So we're just going to pour it in and keep our eye on it. Stir it and add a little more water at a time until it gets to the consistency that we want it. And what we're looking for basically, I guess, is like a pancake batter or a cake mix batter. See how thick it still is? Oh, you know what I forgot also, guys? Well, this will go to the, why not add a little to the wet and the dry, right? Yeah, that's some baking powder. Add a teaspoon of baking powder. I'm adding a teaspoon of baking powder to that, and about a teaspoon also to my dry. So I don't forget, I'll just put it into dry right now. Okay. You can also add ground flaxseed to this if you like, for the extra, health benefits. Okay, so we want something like this, thin but not too thin. Okay, now I'm just going to add the same ingredients to the dry flour. Teaspoon of salt and parsley. I do this so you get the flavors all the way through. Onion powder. And remember, this is just a half a cup of flour. Garlic powder. So you don't want to add a whole lot of seasoning because it's just a little bit of, in the flour. But the more flour you use, the more seasonings you use. Okay. Paprika. And a little pinch of black pepper. Just give that a good mix. And remember the teaspoon of baking powder, I had already put it in here. Alright. Here I have 3 washed and dried jalapenos. I'm going to use this to put the seeds in them. So what we do is we just cut it. Cut them in half evenly. Try to cut them evenly in half so both halves are the same thickness. Oops. Now when you do this, if you have animals in your house or little kids, make sure not to drop any of these seeds or any of the white inside of this onto the floor, because they'll suffer. If they get this in their mouth or eyes, it'll be horrible for them. So we want to protect them. So just please try not to get any of this stuff on your floor. And if you do, pick it up right away. Just, let's see, you take your spoon and you just go along the inside of this with the spoon and you empty out the seeds. I said earlier, I had did this video, I think last month, but YouTube had given me an issue with copyright, even though the music that I chose came right off of an editing app. But either way, I had no issue with taking the song down, but it just took so long to process that. It was just frustrating. So I figured, you know what? I might as well just delete the whole video and just do it over. It'll be quicker that way than to deal with the nonsense. Every change you make, each and every little change you make, once you hit that save button, you have to wait for them to process. And not everything, you can't edit everything all at once. So individually, you have to, edit, save, but each time you have to wait for them to process it. And that could take 24 hours. And it does take 24 hours, if not longer. So it was just easier and quicker to do it this way. Delete it and do another video. Okay, so here they are. And you can leave these on or take them off. The little stems, I'll take them off. They pop right off. Okay. So I'm gonna stuff them. The last video I did that I deleted, I only filled them with the ricotta cheese. But this time I guess I'll fill them also with the mozzarella as well. These were cut pretty thin, so I'm just gonna roll this up. Try to roll them up. And I'll just fill this up in here with this. Well, this is a little more trickier than the ricotta when you're battering it. It's just a little more trickier to keep from falling out in between the battering process. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to place some batter on dry flour on here, just so the wet batter will stick to it better. Okay. So here I'm going to add the wet batter. This one came out a little lumpy, probably because I don't know, maybe I don't know. It just came out lumpy. Maybe I should have used a fork or a whisk on it. But I don't think it's going to really make a difference, quite honestly. So here, okay, now let the excess batter drip off. And place it into the dry batter. Using your dry, clean hand, take the flour and cover up the pepper. And don't be afraid to press down on that cheese. So make sure that way it's held in good. Okay, shake off the excess of that. And here you have this. So that's a cheese one. Let's do a ricotta one. That's a mozzarella one. Let's do, this is the mozzarella. One filled with mozzarella, and now let's fill this one with some ricotta. Okay. This is the ricotta going into this one. Okay. And we'll do the same for this. We'll just roll the back of the jalapeno into the dry mix. Then we'll put it into the wet mix. Just cover it up. Let the excess batter drip off. And then we'll place it into the dry batter, the dry flour. And again, don't be afraid to press down a little firmness, some slight firmness, just to hold everything inside in place. Okay. So there we have it. We'll do another mozzarella one. And again, look how beautiful the mozzarella came out. So what we'll do is we'll cut this one a little thicker. Let's cut this here. Try like so to I guess the length of the pepper. Just squeeze it on in there. Don't be afraid to squeeze it in there. Okay. Okay. Now just batter this a little with the dry. And the reason for doing this is because it helps the wet batter to stick on better. And just pop it in there. Get our spoon. Get rid of the excess batter. Pop it in here. Back into the wet. Don't be afraid to press down. Okay. Shake it off. All right. All right. So I believe, yes, I have 2 with mozzarella. This one I already filled with ricotta, so that makes 2 ricottas I have. So let me just batter this one up. again. Shake off that batter. You see it's not really falling out. The cheese is staying in there. Okay. Press down firmly but gently. Okay, so that's three. That's two. Sorry, that's two with that's two with the ricotta. Let's experiment with these last two halves here. And let's try to fill it with both ricotta and the cheese. So let's see. What I can do is, how's about we do it like this? Because I don't think stuffing the cheese and then the ricotta, I think it's better if we cut up the mozzarella into some cubes, right? Let's cut it up into little cubes. And let's put them in here. This is going to be interesting. Now, I'll grab some ricotta and mix it up. That way everything's mixed up and it goes in at the same time, as opposed to trying to layer one with the other, and that may not work out. So I think this will be much better. Okay. So we have two with ricotta cheese, two with mozzarella, and the other two we're going to stuff with both the mozzarella and the ricotta. Oh, a little straggler there. Okay. Oh, yeah. You definitely see the cheese, the little cubes of mozzarella in there. I'm excited to see how this one turns out. Okay, now we have this one. I will leave that on. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's see how this turns out. Okay. The dry flour first. The dry flour first. Shake it off. Now the wet one, the wet batter. Remember, shake off the excess. Okay. And now we have the dry. So I'll sprinkle on. Don't be afraid to press, like I said, a little firm, just to make sure everything is packed in there good. Okay. So, shake off the excess dry flour. And then we have our last one here. Dry. Put it in the dry. Place it in the wet. Okay. Let it drip off. Back into the dry. Press down. Turn it over. Okay. Shake off the rest of the dry excess of the flour. So here we have it. Okay. Make some room so I can show you. So here we have two with the mozzarella and the ricotta stuffed in it. Here we have the two with just the ricotta. And here we have the two here with the mozzarella cheese in it. So I'm going to get that oil on. I should already have the oil on, but it just slipped my mind. So I'm going to go turn that oil on. Okay, so here I have canola oil. It's been heating up. If you want to know if it's really hot enough, just drop a piece of flour, in there, or put a wooden spoon in there, and it starts doing that. It's hot enough. Just be careful when you're putting in. Just be careful when you're putting in these jalapenos, because that oil is very hot, and we don't want to burn ourselves or, God forbid, start a grease fire. I had it on high, just to give it to get it heated more quickly. Now I have it on medium low. So the first two going in are the ones that I stuffed with both the mozzarella and the ricotta. Okay. These two are just the ricotta. And I'm just going to leave 4 in there because I don't want to overcrowd it, and I don't want the oil overflowing. We don't want to overcrowd it because we want them to fry, get crispy. We don't want them to steam. Also, you can make these, guys. You can make these, lay them down flat, separate from each other. Let them freeze, and put them in a baggie and put them in the freezer, so when you want them, you can have them anytime you want to. Just pop them in the oil or in the oven, or however you do your jalapenos. But these are very freezable friendly. Gently flip it over. Oh, you know what? Let's see. Sometimes you don't even have to flip these things over. You could just gently and carefully scoop some oil over the top of them, and they fry up really nice like that too. Okay, so let's flip this over. You could leave it in to get a little browner if you like. See that browning up pretty quick. When you see that happening, lower the flame a little. And as a matter of fact, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to put these back in on this side. See? I believe these two are the last with the mozzarella in it. Because I lowered the oil, it's not frying up as fast as the others did, but that's okay. Okay, here's a pretty simple avocado dip that I also had made on that video that I ended up deleting. I'm gonna do it real quick for you guys now because it is pretty much a fast recipe. It's really quick. Okay. I'm just gonna scoop this up and put it into the blend, my little food processor. Oh. Okay. Okay. And the lime. Just a wedge of lime. Let's see. You know what? I think I'm gonna put the 2 wedges of lime in. What the heck? Okay, so 2 wedges. I did the 2 wedges of lime. I'm gonna use some of this sour cream, vegan sour cream. You can use any brand of vegan sour cream that you like. I'm gonna add a little cilantro in it too. Add a tiny bit of salt. Just a pinch of salt, or you can add the salt after you blend it. Much greener it was much greener the last time I made it, most likely because it was a larger avocado, but that's okay. It's good. Okay, so I forgot to turn on the camera again. So this is the one that has the mozzarella and the ricotta inside of it. Trying to focus it so you can see. It's really good. You could definitely taste the 2 differences. You could taste the ricotta and you could taste the flavor from the mozzarella. And the creaminess, they have their own texture of creaminess from the mozzarella and the ricotta. It's really good. I'm glad I did this. That's good. So, this one, I believe it's just the ricotta. And I put some of the avocado dip on it. Actually, I'm trying to get this to focus. This is the mozzarella. That's the mozzarella cheese. And that is good. So here we have it. I'll try not to do anything I'll try not to do anything that YouTube feels to censor. um, that way I could just load this up and you guys can see. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share. I appreciate you guys so much. I see I'm getting a few extra viewers here and there, and I appreciate you guys. I hope you're enjoying the recipes. Leave your messages or your questions in the comment box, and I'll be more than happy to answer anything that you guys want questions to. So I love you guys and I appreciate you. Please try this recipe. It's really good. Thank you and have a great week.